feel like what keeps happening is I do the introduction and then you have to do the plot. I feel like you don't want to do the plot, so you need to do the introduction. But you don't know what movie we're doing.
Yeah, I don't know what movie we're reviewing.
So we just watched Wendell and Wild. Bert, explain the plot.
Whew, this is a doozy.
It really is. There was a lot going on in this movie.
So much happened. We follow the main character, who's a young girl, and she lives with her parents in a small town.
Which is understandable.
Spoiler alert, her parents die very early on in the story. And
so
she
goes to this Catholic
gets kind of passed around through foster homes and lands back in her hometown.
The person who runs the school is trying to get government money by agreeing to run Catholic school program.
While she's there, she becomes beginnings.
How did they say his name? It was really, it was like Beelzebub, but it wasn't. Like the bear was like Beelzebub. It was something like that.
Oh, okay. That went over my head then. Anyhow,
there was a lot of stuff going on in this movie.
There was a lot of stuff going on in this movie.
Wendell
and Wild, they'd like to build their own amusement park for demons for this young girl. Section of how their demons. Wendell and Wild they'd like to experience summer together. So they kind of make a deal or a trade with money.
No, they needed money once they were on Earth to build it. There was a lot going on in this movie.
Okay, anyways, we don't need to get into all the details. The overarching concept is there's a young girl, Kat. She's got a troubled life and she feels guilty for her parents' death and wants to bring them back to life. There are two demons who want to get on Earth and build this amusement park of their own, and they use Beelzebub's magic hair cream, bring it to Earth, and start resurrecting people. And through an unusual string
Where did they get the hair cream from?
From their job on Beelzebub's head.
Why did they have that job?
They were punished. I don't remember
what were they punished for.
I don't remember.
They were trying to build their own park.
That's what they were punished for?
Yeah. There was a lot going on in this movie.
Let's just start this review over from the beginning.
There was a lot going on in this movie. It was almost like two different movies smashed together. There was the one with the main character who was like, her parents died, she goes to a new school, trying to reconnect with her past, and she finds these personal demons who are like trying to help her through her trauma and her grief. And then there's another part of this movie that's like about government corruption with like the headmaster and the people trying to buy out the town. It was kind of all over the place.
I think that the two components that this movie was really trying to drive home were Kat, the young girl, learning to accept herself and make peace with her past. And then I think they were really doing a lot to reference community. They touch on the concept of setting up incentives for communities to fall apart, like government-funded programs that are supposed to do good in theory, but land with incentivizing individuals within the community to not succeed.
So it's not really about the government, like whether or not the government's bad or good. It's more like the way people try to obtain government funding.
Yeah, like the system is set up to incentivize the wrong things.
It's not.
You can easily exploit it.
It's not, though. It's set up in a way that, like you just said, it's set up in a way where you can very easily exploit it if you already have the means to exploit it. Overall, I liked the story. I liked what it was trying to do, but it took a long time for me to get into it. The opening scene, I really didn't like. I feel like this movie could have started on the scene with Wendell and Wild planting the hair. I feel like everything leading up to that was like, why are we seeing this? It was a waste of our time. It was a waste of the animator's resources.
Really?
Yeah, because it was all stuff we learn about again later on in the movie. It's one of those things where it's like, if we had learned about it for the first time in those moments, it would have been a lot more dramatic and a lot more effective. You know, open with Wendell and Wild, go to the girl going into this new school, and then you're kind of like with her more. You don't necessarily understand like why she's being so hard on herself, what she's been through, and then you're kind of more like in the perspective of the students learning about her life. This whole movie felt like it really needed more work on the story.
I don't think the story was perfect, but I don't know that I would dismiss or remove the sections that you referenced. I feel like what the beginning of the movie did do was express the importance of family, friends, and community.
I feel like I'm looking at this in terms of like a PG-13 movie, where this movie is PG-13. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I wasn't.
It is. I don't think it should be. I don't know why it is.
Surprises me.
Probably for like scary imagery with like all the zombies towards the end, but like Paranorman exists. Looking at this as a PG-13 movie, I feel like the story needed to be more mature. I feel like it needed to be trying to like reach an audience that had more mental capacity than like a 9-year-old watching something like Coraline. To kind of like build off of what you were saying, there's the scene later in the movie where she's buying falafel from that food cart, and the guy's like, "Oh, I've missed you, it's glad that you're back." Like, that is enough to do what you're saying. We didn't need to see her as like a toddler eating at his food truck. I shouldn't say it's a waste of time. It's poorly paced.
Yeah, that's fair. Poorly paced is fair.
I'm not saying I didn't like this movie.
Say some things you did like about it then.
I'm just saying the beginning was really rough, and I think that was because of how many ideas it was like throwing at you the whole time. And once it got to the point where you kind of knew what was happening, then it was like really good.
I especially liked once Wendell and Wild were on Earth. I feel like
they didn't get enough to do. They were just kind of like there.
I think the piece that I was the most unsure about was the green hand and the bears above and her hand in connection with. I don't actually think I know what a hell maiden is. It's
like somebody who does deals with demons, basically. So they have the janitor, and he made or found Beelzebub. They wasn't really clear on that. I don't think they needed to explain that, to be honest. There was like that weird orb thing that went to Wendell and Wild that was like, "Hey, I found you a new hell maiden."
Oh yeah.
And I think that is what marked her. And I don't know if that was the octopus or Beelzebub, but whatever it was, that's what the scar on her hand was.
Yeah, I think it's Beelzebub, but I guess my question is, did they choose her?
I think it's more a matter of like finding them. I think that they just exist. And then it's like once they're marked, they can connect with their demons. At least that's what the movie seemed to be implying.
I don't think that the problem with the pacing bothered me as much as it bothered you.
I would say that I was watching this in like 2 layers. And one layer was like, I was really excited for it. I wanted it to be good. And I did enjoy it a lot. And the other layer was like, this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And I feel like I was kind of hyper aware of where it was falling short. The biggest way it was falling short was the way in which the story unfolded.
There were moments where I felt the Henry Selick magic. The little choir singing songs were happening and things felt magical and exciting and giddy. And there were moments where I felt Key and Peele. Like it was funny and so true to their comedy style. But there were lots of moments in between where it did kind of, I don't want to say fall short, but it didn't feel as full.
Honestly, I was expecting this to be worse.
Really?
Yes. I remember seeing, like, when this movie was first announced, the plot was like, 2 goth kids befriend demons who are in an eternal war with each other. And I was like, that's not really going to be a movie. That's going to be, like, a collection of skits. They did a really good job, like, finding a story and finding characters, but I just feel like it needed more time to really be developed to a point where it could have been something really good.
I would love to see them make another movie again, though. I like the combination of those creative geniuses all wrapped up.
Can we talk about the animation now? I really like Henry Selick, and stop motion is my favorite medium, hence why I was so excited for this movie. I really liked the animation. I really liked the art style. It was like something new. This was very like geometric. Like the character designs were like very hard shapes.
I especially agree with you in the way that things felt like geometric. Something as simple as like their hair and their facial features. Like their lips in this movie were so much more interestingly created than any other Henry Selick movie. There's just so many little things like that that were really detailed and pretty.
Ever since the first Leica movie, which was Coraline, they've done this thing where the faces for the puppets is like half. The reason they did that was because instead of making like 1,000 faces, they can make like 250 of each piece and then just swap them out. So what Leica does is they then CGI over that line. And ever since the first movie, I've been wondering, like, how would I feel about that line being there? This movie has those lines, they didn't CG over it, and I really kind of liked it. Because part of what I love about stop motion so much is that it's like so clearly an inanimate object that you're watching being brought to life. And just like being aware of that line is such a small thing, but it's just another thing where you're like, this is not real, like this is a toy basically.
See, you say this is not real, but for me it feels so much more real.
Yeah.
Like, it's something I could just like reach out and touch.
I think the texture is what really gets me about stop motion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like this movie felt, I have no better word to use other than like touchable. Compared to something like Kubo, this felt a lot more like touchable and real and physically there, that you're more immersed in it. Just from like a textural, visual, and stylized standpoint. You know what I think of? I think of when they're planting the hair in Beelzebub's head and just watching those curls of hair like spring up.
The difference between like this movie and Kubo is Kubo was just kind of like a movie that was stop motion, and this was like, let's use stop motion to our advantage
and make anything. Like Kubo feels clean. Kubo is beautiful. I am not talking down on Kubo.
The thing that really stood out for me with this movie was when Beelzebub comes onto Earth and his belly like jiggles all that much. Like that's not the kind of thing I feel like you'd see in a Leica movie. This movie is like really kind of dirty.
Yeah.
And dingy, which I think plays to stop motion strengths more than like a clean, crisp look.
Yeah.
Well, I also think the reason, like what you're talking about, I think the reason why you feel so strongly about this movie is because of like the cubism look of everything. I think it makes it look less real, and in doing so, it's more of like this is a real thing that I'm looking at. Whereas, again, looking back at Leica, it looks a lot more like a CGI movie.
It was so weird how much it looked like them and yet looked nothing like them. The ways in which they were sculpted to be mini versions of Key and Peele.
I really liked how Peele had like the eye glimmer every shot he was in.
Oh, I missed that.
He had like a white inlight on his eyes, and it was just like every shot he was in, there was like that little glimmer, and it was just so adorable.
I feel like in any other situation where this would occur, they would be playing characters that look nothing like them, but talking in their regular voice, which reminds you, hey, this is Key and Peele. But this was the complete opposite. Their voice acting was so good that I forgot that it was even them talking, but then visually, you could just see the touch of their face in the character.
Well, that's the thing about voice acting. You're supposed to voice act, and most people, when they get casted to voice act, they're like, hey, Chris Rock, we want your voice in our movie. They're not like, hey, Chris Rock, come play this character. And a lot of like professional voice actors actually really despise when they do this. And it all stems back all the way to Robin Williams in Aladdin, if you can believe it. Disney casted him so that they could say Robin Williams was in their movie. And then he was very, very adamant, like, do not use me for your marketing. And then they did. And now here we are 30 years later where every animated movie is like, dude, Sam Rockwell is in the new DreamWorks movie.
It is a weird concept that we hire celebrities to just do the same thing over and over. Like, to just be themselves. Even though, like, obviously that's not who they are, but, like, this is the version of you that everyone knows and loves. Please give us more of exactly that.
That really impressed me with this movie, how much they didn't sound like themselves. They were genuinely voice acting. Good job, Key and Peele.
So, what would you rate this movie? Because you started off pretty negative.
Visually, it's amazing. No duh. There's a lot of really great, interesting, weird things going on in the story.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't always like connect the way I think it should. It never really like made me feel the way I think it intended to make me feel. All of that was outshined very, very much by the animation.
I think it has its faults, but I did really like it. I think it's a good movie. It's like, sounds like an insult, but I mean it with love. This is like a good family movie.
What?
No?
There was like anti-government, anti-religion, zombies, resurrection, making deals with the devil. Are you serious?
I thought personally that it walked to the line of adult content in a kid-friendly way pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Henry Selick does well, but I feel like this one took it further. I really liked how far this movie took things. I liked that the zombies became such a major plot point. I liked that the demons became such a major plot point. I liked that the prison became such a major plot point.
I like that the hair cream became such a major plot point.
Well, it's a sort of small detail that's like, another movie would have let that go to waste, but the fact that this is stop motion, it's like you're literally spending dozens of hours crafting this and working with it. You're like, what can we do with this? Like, why is this in this movie?
It did make me wonder, though, where they got it, because the end of the movie was like, this is all that remains, the magic hair cream.
Yeah, that was weird, because the beginning
come from somewhere.
The beginning made it seem like that they were like going through it and getting more.
But anyhow,
who is your favorite character?
It's gotta be Wendell and Wild. I can't think of anyone who would.
I really liked the nun. I don't know what her name was. Remember that the main character has time travel powers now?
I thought she could see the future.
There's a lot going on in this movie.